The moment the light snapped on, I felt the air shift, a heartbeat earlier. My team had been cheering, arms raised, congratulating each other on the strongest quarter we had ever delivered. I was still holding a paper plate with a slice of cake when my boss, Leonard Hale, stepped forward and said, with a flatness that cut straight through the noise, "The party is over." The room fell silent so quickly it almost hurt. I looked at Leonard, waiting for a joke, a smirk, something human. His face stayed empty. Then HR stepped beside him with a folder so thick it bent at the spine. Effective immediately. She began, "The following employees are terminated." The first name she read was mine, Bella Rowan. For a second, I did not move. My arm went numb around the cake. Behind me, someone gasped my name, but HR kept reading, steady and relentless. More names, then more. People I trained, people who built this department with me, people who had been promised stability. A security guard appeared in the doorway, then another. Their presence confirmed what Leonard would never say out loud. This was not restructuring. This was removal. Clean, fast, and meant to leave no room for argument. My teammate Sandra whispered, "Bella, they're clearing out half the floor." I heard it, but it felt distant, like the words were coming from another room. HR continued until I recognized the pattern every person who had worked directly under me. It hit me then, sharp and cold. The list wasn't random, it wasn't performance-based, it was targeted. Someone wanted the entire core of the department gone in a single strike. When HR finally closed the folder, no one clapped anymore. No one breathed. Leonard only nodded toward the exit, as if we were routine paperwork being filed away. I set the untouched cake on the nearest table and walked. My team followed without a word. The corridor outside felt strangely quiet, like the world was watching to see what we would do next. And as the elevator doors slid open, I understood we were already past the point of return. The elevator hadn't even closed before someone said, "Bella." What was that? I didn't answer. My mind was still replaying the sound of my name echoing across that room. We stepped into the hallway outside HR, and the same woman who had read the list walked out behind us. I turned to her. "You need to explain this. Criteria. Justification something." She clutched the folder tighter. "I am not authorized to discuss details." "That was half my department," I said, my voice sharper than I meant. "You owe them more than silence." She repeated, "I am not authorized," and tried to step past me. Sandra moved between us, trembling. "Why did you say my name?" Her voice cracked, years of loyalty breaking with it. She had been at the company longer than Leonard. She had trained him when he first arrived. HR didn't answer. She just lowered her gaze like she couldn't bear to meet Sandra's eyes. Behind us, a group of people who hadn't been fired hovered near the main hallway. They avoided looking at us, every single one of them. No sympathy, no shock. Just a quiet, practiced distance. I stared at them. "You knew." No one replied. A younger analyst finally whispered, "Management told us not to interfere." Sandra pressed her hands to her face and sobbed, the sound tearing through the stillness. I reached for her, but before I could comfort her, I felt a presence. Leonard. He stood a few steps away, arms crossed, watching me, not the team, not the people crying, just me. His expression shifted from satisfaction to calculation, like he was waiting to see if I would break or beg or explode. I met his stare and held it. My anger had no place to land, no weapon, no defense, but I refused to give him the reaction he wanted. He finally spoke. "You should collect your belongings." His tone made it clear this wasn't a conversation. This was an order. I turned away from him, but the question lodged itself deep in my chest as the hallway stretched silent around us. Why had my name been read first, and who had decided the order at all? None of us spoke as we moved toward the elevator. It was the kind of silence that forms after something violent, not loud, not messy, just final. Shoes against carpet. Breath held. Every step felt like we were leaving a version of ourselves behind. Sandra walked beside me, eyes red but jaw set. "I am not crying in front of them again," she whispered. "You don't owe them anything," I said. When the elevator arrived, all 8 of us crowded inside. The doors slid shut, cutting off the sight of Leonard still standing in the hallway, still watching me like I was unfinished business. Halfway to the lobby, Nathan, our youngest project manager, blurted out, "Wait, who's running tomorrow's Iron Gate review?" Heads snapped toward him. No one answered. "That presentation is at 9 in the morning," he said, voice rising. "We were finalizing it today. Iron Gate is half the division's revenue." Sandra let out a shaky breath. They fired the entire team that built the project. Every analyst, every strategist. "That's not restructuring," Nathan said. "That's suicide." A wave of realization rolled through the elevator. My stomach tightened. I said, Leonard knew the deadline. He approved the meeting schedule. He saw the deliverables on my desk yesterday. "So why fire everyone tonight?" someone asked quietly. I didn't reply, but the answer was forming, sharp as broken glass. This wasn't downsizing. This wasn't budget cuts. This wasn't random, Sandra whispered. "They needed us yesterday," Nathan added. "They need us tomorrow." The elevator reached the lobby with a soft chime. The doors opened, and cool air drifted in from the marble foyer. We stepped out as a single unit, not speaking, not hesitating. As we crossed the lobby, the final piece slid into place inside my mind. We hadn't been removed to save money or restructure the department. We had been erased quickly, erased together, and nothing about that was accidental. We pushed through the glass doors and onto the street, leaving the building behind us. The city noise felt louder than usual, almost accusing, as if it already knew what we had not yet said out loud. If they needed us yesterday, why eliminate us today? We crowded around 2 pushed-together tables in a quiet cafe off Market Street, the kind of place people used for study sessions and breakup conversations. Tonight, it felt like both. No one ordered anything. We just sat there, stunned, until Nathan finally broke the silence. "I need you to see this," he said, sliding his phone across the table toward me. The email preview glowed on the screen. "Replace them before Q1 reporting. No leaks." Sandra let out a small, disbelieving laugh. This was sent from inside the executive chain. Why would they write something like that unless they were scared of what we'd report? Nathan said. Iron Gate's numbers alone could bury someone. A second teammate, Lila, opened her laptop with shaking hands. "I was double-checking forecasts yesterday. Look." She pulled up spreadsheets with revisions highlighted in red. These budget figures were changed at the top level, not corrected rewritten. Entire lines shifted. No audit trail. I stared at the screen. These don't match the actual revenue streams. "They haven't matched in months," Lila said. "I thought it was a mistake. Now I don't." The table went quiet again. Not shocked, calculating. Sandra turned to me. "Bella, did you ever notice anything off?" I hesitated, then pulled my own laptop from my bag. I didn't want to assume anything without proof. But I've been tracking discrepancies since last fall. I opened the folder hidden deep in my documents, the one I had guarded and updated for months. Dozens of files, month-over-month comparisons, email threads where I asked for missing reports, screenshots showing mismatched figures between internal updates and the numbers sent to clients. Everyone leaned in. Nathan whispered, "If our department keeps outperforming projections, those inconsistencies get harder to hide. And if we're gone," Sandra said, "no one can point out the lies." The weight of it settled like a stone in the middle of the table. We hadn't been fired because we failed. We had been fired because we knew too much or could know too much if we looked too closely. As the cafe door clicked shut behind a late-night customer, a single question tightened inside my chest with a clarity I could not ignore. Who benefits most from erasing my entire department? My phone rang just as Sandra was scrolling through another altered budget sheet. I didn't recognize the number, but the area code was local. I answered anyway. "Bella Rowan," a man's voice asked. "This is Daniel Ray from Irongate." The entire table went still. I stepped aside, lowering my voice. "Daniel, is everything all right?" "Not remotely," he said. "We have been trying to reach your department all evening. Every line went straight to voicemail." He paused. "Is there a system outage or is there something we need to know?" My throat tightened. "Can we meet? Just you and me. In person." He hesitated only a moment. "Half an hour. Our old city office." When I returned to the table, the team stared at me. I didn't need to explain. They understood. Sandra touched my arm. "Be careful what you say." "I know," I replied. "I'm not giving them anything. I'm looking for the cracks." Daniel met me in a small conference room overlooking the street. No pleasantries, no coffee, no pretense. "Bella," he said, "your whole department vanished today." "What happened? I can't speak on behalf of the company," I said. "But I do want to ask you something. Did you receive the latest performance packet?" He frowned. "Yesterday morning. And the numbers inside, did they align with what you saw during our on-site review?" His jaw tightened. "No, they did not." I nodded. "Then you understand why I asked to meet." He leaned forward. "Tell me the truth." "I don't have the authority," I said, "but I have concerns. And I think you do too." Daniel exhaled slowly. Then he said something that shifted everything. "There is a clause in Irongate's contract. Team-specific authorization. We only approved your group to manage our account. Legally, your company cannot replace you without our consent." Heat rushed through me. "Not panic purpose." Daniel continued. "If they fired all of you, they have violated the agreement, which means we have leverage." I didn't smile, but something inside me sharpened. Leadership's arrogance had opened a door they didn't realize existed. Daniel closed his folder. "Bella, if your team was misled, I need to know how deep this goes." And suddenly the path ahead was no longer fog. It was clear. If Irongate had been misled, how many others were standing on false reports? We gathered in a small co-working room near Rittenhouse Square, the kind you could rent by the hour. The fluorescent lights buzzed above us, matching the tension in the air. No one bothered to sit. Everyone hovered, restless, waiting for someone else to speak first. Nathan finally broke. "I cannot do this," he said, pacing in a tight circle. "My daughter is 5 weeks old. If I lose health care, we are done. We cannot afford emergencies. We cannot gamble." Sandra crossed her arms. "None of us can gamble. Nathan, but if we let them bury us, I am thinking about my family." He snapped. "Not justice, not revenge, survival." Lila spoke next, voice small. "The company offered severance, 2 months, but I have to sign a non-disclosure agreement. No references, no statements, no claims." Sandra rounded on her. "So that is it. They erase us and we vanish quietly." "I do not want to," Lila said. I cannot afford to be blacklisted. They control so much of the sector. Every word cut deeper. They were right. All of them. And I was failing them by pretending I had answers. Nathan stopped pacing and looked straight at me. "Bella, you met with Irongate. You know more than you are saying. Tell us if this fight is even survivable." His voice carried something I hadn't heard until now, fear mixed with hope. Dangerous hope. The kind that could destroy people if I misstepped. "I do not know yet," I said quietly. The room fell silent. I felt every pair of eyes on me, waiting for a promise I could not make. "I need air," I murmured, and slipped out into the narrow alley behind the building. The brick walls were cool beneath my back as I leaned against them. Philadelphia's old architecture always made me feel grounded. But tonight, it felt like history pressing down, reminding me that people who stayed silent never changed anything. Leonard had counted on that silence, on fear, on exhaustion. If we whispered away into NDAs and severance packages, he would win without ever lifting a finger. I pushed away from the wall and returned inside, heart unsteady, because the question waiting in that room was heavier than anything I had faced yet. Can I ask them to risk their stability for a fight I am not even sure I can win? Irongate called the next morning. Daniel did not waste time. "We want your team," he said. "Short-term contract, fully legal under the authorization clause. We will handle any backlash." For the first time since the firing, my breath came easier. "Send the agreement. I will get signatures." Within 2 hours, all of us were huddled in the same co-working room, laptops open, reviewing the temporary consulting contract. Nathan scanned every line twice. "They cannot touch us under this clause," he said. "Irongate is shielding us." Sandra nodded. "Then we start now." We built a makeshift workstation, folding tables, shared chargers, borrowed monitors. It was messy, cramped, far from our former office. But the energy felt alive again. Irongate sent deliverables immediately, trusting us without hesitation. By midday, Daniel emailed an introduction thread addressed to his entire leadership team. "This group is the only reason we hit our strategic targets last quarter. Their work stands on its own." He never mentioned our former company. Not once. An hour later, Sandra's phone buzzed. "Look at this," she whispered, holding up the screen. Irongate had posted publicly on their professional network. "Grateful for the brilliant team guiding our projects. Your integrity sets the standard." My name, Sandra's, Nathan's, Lila's, all tagged. The company name we had left behind, absent. The reaction was immediate. First came the texts from former co-workers. "Are you working with Irongate? What is happening over there? Leadership is freaking out." Then came the leak. Nathan stared at his laptop. "Someone just sent me screenshots from inside the company Slack." He turned the screen toward me. Thread after thread. "We are losing control. How did Irongate get access to them? Why were they terminated before the Q1 report? Who approved this decision?" Sandra let out a slow, stunned exhale. "They are panicking." I felt it too, the shift. Not victory, but fear. Not ours. Theirs. For the first time since the lights snapped on in that conference room, I understood exactly what we had disrupted, and I knew they would not let it go quietly. How far would the company go to stop me from exposing the truth? By the next morning, my inbox carried 2 unexpected messages. Both were from long-standing clients, Devlin Manufacturing and Gray Harbor Analytics. Their subject lines were identical. Requesting clarification. Urgent. I called Devlin first. Their operations director, Miriam, answered immediately. "Bella, I need to understand something," she said. "Your former company sent us quarterly projections that look inconsistent." "Inconsistent how I asked. The numbers do not match what your team presented during the on-site in early March. Not even close." I kept my tone steady. "I cannot speak on behalf of the company, but tell me which figures concern you." She read them aloud. They were the same numbers Lila had shown me, the same ones rewritten at the executive level. I didn't accuse anyone. I didn't explain what we had uncovered. I just guided her through the math she already knew. By the end of the call, Miriam said quietly, "We will be withdrawing our partnership. Effective immediately." Gray Harbor's conversation went the same way. Calm questions, gentle guidance. Then, the silent decision that cut deeper than shouting ever could. Sandra closed her laptop and whispered, "That is 2 accounts gone." Back to back. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with an email from HR. "We request a conversation regarding recent developments. Please respond promptly." I blocked the address without opening it fully. A few minutes later, a familiar number flashed across my screen. Leonard. I stared at it, pulse steady, before answering. His voice came through strained, clipped. "Bella, we need to talk. I thought you made your position clear." I said. "I need you to come back," he said, fast, like the words burned. "You know the systems. You know the clients. You can fix this." Sandra froze. Lila's head snapped up. Nathan mouthed. "Did he really say that I kept my voice level?" "You fired me in front of an entire department. That was a mistake," he said. "Just come back. We can undo this." Undo this. As if loyalty were a switch he could flip on command. I ended the call, letting the silence settle over the room. The man who had read me off a list like expired inventory now sounded desperate. Why would a man who fired me publicly now beg me privately to return? Leonard insisted we meet professionally. So I walked back into the building I had been escorted out of only days earlier. The receptionist avoided looking at me as she buzzed me through. The conference room he chose was empty, lights dim, chairs pushed in as if no one had dared to use the space since the firing. Leonard stood at the head of the table. "Bella," he said, spreading his hands like we were old friends. "This situation has been mishandled." I didn't sit. "You fired half the department without warning." "I did not fire anyone," he snapped. "The board pushed for cuts. HR insisted on compliance. Market pressure forced our hand. You know how unstable this quarter has been." "You read the list," I said. "You watched people cry. You stood there like it was out of your control." He rubbed his forehead. "I was following directives. I had no choice. You had every choice," I said. "And you chose convenience over integrity." His expression hardened. "You think you understand pressure? You think you understand what the board expects? You have no idea what I deal with." The phone on the table buzzed. He ignored it. "I never meant for this to spiral," he continued. "If you come back," the phone buzzed again, louder. Irritated, he grabbed it. "What, I'm in a meeting." He froze. Then his face drained of color. "Irongate cannot do that," he said. "The contract, no. This must be a misunderstanding." He listened, silent, shoulders collapsing inch by inch. When he finally ended the call, he looked at me as if seeing me clearly for the first time. "You did this," he whispered. "I told the truth," I replied. What happened next wasn't mine to control. He sank into a chair, all the arrogance stripped away. If everything he built was collapsing under its own lies, what exactly was left for me to reclaim? 6 months passed before I heard the final piece. Leonard Hale had been removed with cause. The board uncovered every doctored budget, every fabricated metric, every manipulation he had signed with his own hand. No severance, no transition package, no quiet exit through a side door. Sandra read the announcement aloud in our new office, her voice steady. They escorted him out in under 10 minutes. Nathan let out a breath, faster than they escorted us. By then, our team was no longer a scattered group of shell-shocked analysts. We had become the Rowan Group, a consultancy operating across the Northeast. Irongate had signed a multi-year contract with us in early spring. Devlin Manufacturing joined next. Then Gray Harbor. 3 more followed. We were not just surviving. We were visible, recognized, chosen. The office phone buzzed. Another contract inquiry. Sandra answered it while Nathan reviewed projections for the next quarter. I stepped into my own small glass-walled room to check messages. There was one new text, a number I still recognized. "I thought you'd never leave." No apology, no accountability. Just the quiet admission of a man who finally understood he had underestimated the wrong person. I deleted the message without responding. Standing at the window, Philadelphia stretched out below us, historic stone, modern steel, all layered together like every version of the city refusing to disappear. Nathan and Sandra joined me a moment later. "We did this," Sandra said. "We earned this," Nathan added. I nodded. There was no triumph in my chest, no bitterness either, just clarity, clean and unclouded. "We were never fired," I said. "We were freed." Sandra smiled. "So what now?" "Now. The future was ours to build." "He burned the bridge," I said softly. "We built a whole new road."